uBiome, an almost billion-dollar company that promised to revolutionize healthcare right up until the FBI showed up at their door. So, how did a company that was worth $600 million at their peak and was flying high crash and burn overnight? What happened? Well, let's start by looking at the co founders. So, we've got Jessica Richmond. She founded and sold a company after high school. She did engineering at Stanford. She attended Oxford. So she was like this rising star girl in the tech world. And then we got Zachary Apty. I'm sorry, dude, I don't know how to say your name, but he earned his PhD from University of California. And he was kind of like the technical, scientific brains behind the operation, and Jessica was the face, the CEO. And together, in 2012, they founded uBiome, initially positioning it as kind of like a citizen science project. They managed to raise like $105 million for their venture, and yeah, during this period, they were praised for their groundbreaking work, especially Jessica in particular. Featured in a lot of media. She was featured in a lot of media outlets, enhancing her reputation as kind of this leading figure in biotech innovation. So, how does this company actually work? Well, they pitched themselves essentially as the 23andMe of poop. And with some test, you could unlock deep insights into your health by analyzing the trillions of bacteria living in your gut. Because, fun fact, there's actually more bacteria living in and on you than there are human cells. So, the more you know. And so, how this kind of worked is you would get this kit, you would, swab a poop sample, you'd mail it back to them, and then they would give you your results. So, what are the more technical details of how they would run these tests? Well, they would take your sample and they would extract all the DNA out of it, and that would include the bacterial and the human DNA. So, they extract that, and they would take a particular gene called 16S rRNA. And the reason they would do that is because only bacteria have this gene. And so that would allow them to ignore all the human DNA because that's not what they're interested in. And they would use this process called PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and they would amplify that gene. So they would make a lot of copies. And then they would sequence it, and then that gives you the ability to ID what bacteria it is. Because even though all bacteria and only bacteria have 16S rRNA as a gene, there's the sequence varies slightly between species, so it kind of makes it like a perfect genetic barcode to identify different microbes. So this entire process is like scanning barcodes in a supermarket, and each bacteria has a unique 16S sequence that tells researchers what's in the microbiome. And then you would get a little report on whether your microbiome is good or bad. And in this time period, people were obsessed with their gut health in like the mid 2010s because there was this trend of increasing awareness on your gut microbiome's role in overall health. There was research that was starting to roll out that, hey, your gut microbiome has implications of things that happen all over your body, not just what happens in your stomach. And so that's why we saw things, like probiotics and kombucha gain a lot of popularity. And, these two in particular, they might have missed the mark a little bit. Like, I know people that swear by kombucha. It's like this miracle water that gives you superpowers, but really it's just mostly sugar and weak fermentation. It doesn't really improve your gut health. Probiotics, well, the thing is, you eat them and you want them to make it to your intestines, but the thing is, there's a stomach in the way with a lot of acid, so most of them just die there. So, unfortunate, but the heart was in the right place. But scientifically, your gut is home to trillions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and they play a huge role in your health. And scientists were finding out that it affects your digestion and nutrient absorption, your immunity, your brain and mood. Like, your gut produces like 90% of your body's serotonin, your feel good chemical, your metabolism and weight, your disease risk. So it's really, really important. And what uBiome was promising was that you could unlock the hidden secrets of your body from a poop sample. And so they were ready to revolutionize healthcare with their holy grail of biotech. But there's a problem. Of course there is, or I wouldn't be making this video. You see, while we know that the microbiome matters and that it kind of has all these implications, scientists don't really fully understand it. We don't know all the intricacies and the whys. And there's also no clear definition of what a healthy microbiome is. It's like your fingerprint. It's very highly personalized. What might be a healthy microbiome for you wouldn't be for another person. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Your diet, your environment, even the breast milk you have as a kid. All massive factors that go into what your microbiome looks like and what's optimal for you. And uBiome, well, they ignored this complexity and they just acted like they had all the answers. But what their test actually told you is what bacteria in your gut and how your microbiome compares to other users. But that doesn't actually tell you whether your microbiome is healthy or unhealthy. Especially with their method of 16S sequencing, it has a lot of limitations. It can't distinguish between live and dead bacteria. It doesn't reveal what genes those bacteria are using. You would have to do whole genome sequencing. And that's important because, for example, there's some E. coli that help digestion and produce vitamins, and then there's other E. coli that cause food poisoning. What's the difference? The genes they activate. Another bacteria, H. pylori. In some people, they help regulate stomach acidity by making things more basic. In others, they cause ulcers and stomach cancer, and whether it's good or bad depends on gene expression in your gut environment. So uBiome, they overpromised what their technique could actually do. It sounded like, this definitive health test, when in reality it's more a data collection project. The problem was the science just wasn't there yet, but uBiome acted like they had all the answers. Their tests weren't even FDA approved for medical diagnosis. So what are they going to do? Are they going to spend a lot of time, year after year, sinking millions of dollars, advancing bit by bit this technology? No, that's not going to make you money quickly, especially when there's a shortcut called fraud. That's going to make you a lot of money real quick. You see, their biggest moneymaker wasn't their science. It was billing insurance companies for as many tests as possible. And so they would encourage customers to submit multiple samples, even if it was unnecessary, and they billed insurance for every test. They retested old samples, billed the insurers again. They would mislead doctors into approving tests, even after the tests were already done, which is a big violation. It's supposed to be the other way around. And they would falsify documents that helped maximize their insurance payouts. And at first, the insurance companies didn't really notice that they were being scammed, but it's only a matter of time. You're not going to beat these guys at their own game. But once they did, well, they weren't happy. And so by 2019, there was a ton of insurers accusing them of fraud and abuse, and even the employees inside the company. They weren't blind. They knew what was happening, but if they spoke up, they would just be told, hey, shut up, go back. We need to maximize that revenue. And so at this point, this wasn't really a biotech startup anymore. It was this house of cards built on fake numbers and lies. And then, in April 2019, everything comes crashing down. The FBI raid their offices, and they weren't just investigating securities fraud. There was healthcare fraud, wire fraud, securities fraud. These guys were collecting fraud like the Infinity Stones. And, after the raid, the insurance companies cut ties, investors pulled out, and within months, it just collapsed. And by March 2021, they had all the material ready, and Jessica and Zach were going to be charged with fraud. Did they go to jail? No, they actually never even went to court. They fled the country in 2020. And where'd they go? They went to Germany. And before leaving, they also secretly got married. They got their marriage certificate or whatever, and then they left. See, they fled to Germany because Germany doesn't like to extradite their own citizens, so they're not going to give over Zach. And because now Jessica's married to Zach, they're not going to give her up either. So it's actually a pretty devious plot that they pulled. Nobody even knew that they were married. It took prosecutors until like 2022 to figure that out. And so basically they scammed insurance companies, they defrauded investors, and then when it all collapsed, they got married and they fled. It's that simple. And when asked, like, hey, are you ever going to come back to like face your charges? They're like, you know what? Jessica she's suffering from the serious medical condition that prevents her from traveling. And, as Zach, I'm her caretaker. So will come when everything's alright, but there's no specific details about her condition or anything like that. So my guess is this condition is probably going to last until they die and they're never going to come back. And that's that. That's the entire story of uBiome. I hope you guys learned something new and were a little entertained. Leave your comments down below, and peace, love, and happiness. See you guys later.